Good morning, guys. How's everybody doing? It's like 4 o'clock in the morning, Monday morning. A little bit before 4, actually. And I can't sleep, so here we are. We did not, as you guys can tell, Jared Atkins, by the way, coming to you live from my Podbean app on my phone instead of all the fancy equipment. Plans got changed this weekend. Kurt was feeling a little under the weather. And with me having COVID for the second time just a few weeks ago, didn't want to take a chance on getting sick and wasting another week. So I was like, we'll just reschedule. So unfortunately, we did not get to record the 1990 World Series episode. But have no fear. We're going to stick that back in the rotation. We now have 2 backup episodes in the can with all the notes and everything ready to go. If we ever need to pull something out of our ass, that would be the 1990 World Series and the 2006 Indianapolis Colts. So those are in the can should we ever need them. Kurt and I are scheduled to record tomorrow night, Tuesday night, for another one of our mini Weeknight Chronicle episodes, which, if all goes to plan, will be the 3rd episode that we're going to release in about 2 days. Because I'm doing this one here. Got a few things I want to say. Later today, Monday morning, around 10 o'clock, I am scheduled to do I guess I'm going to title it just a bonus episode, or I'm going to title it Volume 1 of the interview series. I'm doing a remote interview with one of the head referees of the National Wrestling Alliance, the NWA promotion, a good friend of mine, Jared Fritz. I'm really looking forward to that. That'll be the first ever interview I've done. I could have saved that for when I get the wrestling podcast launched, but you know what? It's whatever. I'm kind of big on wrestling media on Twitter, semi-big. I shouldn't even say big, but I'm involved in wrestling media, and this will help drive some more eyes towards me and towards the product, I guess, the Steel Toes and Scoreboards universe. So I'm looking forward to that, but mainly I'm here because just as I per usual do when I do laundromat listening episodes or when I do the late night me by myself episodes, I just got so much going in my head, and I feel like if I use a vehicle to get them out of there, and that vehicle would be this, that it'll mean a little bit of something. So anyways, the first thing I want to talk about is the month that we just had for the month of July. We are coming off the absolute best month in Steel Toes and Scoreboards history. I don't know exactly what the fuck happened, but I'm glad it did. We finished out yesterday, July 31st, the last day of the month, with 26 downloads. From July 31st to the Sunday before, July 24th, we had 125 downloads in 7 days. We had 206 downloads in the last 30 days from July 1st to July 31st. We are now setting all time at like 984 downloads, which we're almost at 1,000, which is absolutely tremendous. We are up 508% from May 31st through July 31st. We're coming off our worst statistical month, which was June, where we had 34 downloads. When we were so busy, we didn't put out a lot of new content in June. But we crushed our all-time goal, or not a goal, I shouldn't say. We crushed our all-time record, which was set in the month of July last year, or June, excuse me. Our podcast launched towards the end of May in 2021, as I've mentioned before, and I think I mentioned it when Kurt and I did our episode last week. We had 107 downloads in the month of June in 2021, and that was, I said the whole new car smell. It was people checking out the podcast, seeing what it was, and getting used to it, because we launched it like middle towards end of May, so a lot of people hadn't checked all the material yet. We had 107 downloads, and then we fast forward to June of, just a couple months ago, we had our worst download month ever with 34, and I was just so frustrated. And then we come back, and for whatever reason, we came back, and when the month ended yesterday, we added 100 downloads to that. We broke 207 for the month. Shit, I'm happy to get, 30, 50 downloads a month. I don't know what's going on out there, but I just want to come on here and personally thank all the listeners. I want to thank all the people that reach out and give feedback all the time. We've got a lot of new followers on our Twitter account, at STSB podcast. We've got some new likes on our Facebook, on our Steel Toes and Scoreboards Facebook page. A lot of people have been word of mouthing about the podcast. I found out. I don't know what, like I said, I don't know what it is. I don't think the content's that great. That's just me. I'm always going to be my own worst critic. Kurt and I do the best we can. But it's growing. We're almost to the point now where monetization could start happening on this podcast. Like, we're right there crossing off check marks set up by Podbean to where now we could be getting some money because they could be starting to place ads in the podcast. People selling things, people advertising their podcast on our podcast, us advertising our podcast on other podcasts. So we're right there at the, it's close. So it's just the analytics of it all is absolutely amazing. And, I want to personally thank everybody here. I don't know who you are. I know who some of you are. Shout out to my good friend, James Macy, guy you spent some time with down at the old Foundry days. Shout out to Not Your Basic Dad on Twitter. Shout out to all the listeners of the After Two Beers podcast. So, I want to thank you guys. Speaking of the After Two Beers podcast, it is official. It is booked. It is set. And it is going down. Saturday, September 10th. The Saturday after Labor Day weekend. I do not have the kids. Kurt and I will be heading up. We'll be leaving about, 2, 3 o'clock Saturday afternoon. September 10th, we will be driving up to Richmond, Indiana. We'll get up to about Indy or bypass Indy or whatever and hang a right, head east. We'll go to Richmond, and we're going to be recording with Dutch and Gibbler of After Two Beers podcast. As far as I know, we will be talking about sports cards, which is very interesting because I briefly touched on that in the other episode. I think that's really interesting because I got some stuff to talk about that, but we are going to be recording our first episode with them about sports cards and whatnot, which I'm super excited about. Kurt's very excited. He was almost jumping for joy when I texted him this evening, or I guess last night, Sunday night. And then, if all goes according to plan, my goal is to set up my equipment, take 10 or 15 minutes, set up my equipment. If I do not have the extra mics and headphones that we are needing to get to bring Doyle on board for the podcast like we plan on doing, if I do not have them, they do have XLR mics and cables and everything, so they can plug right into our equipment, and then we will record an episode, or they will record one with us, I should say. And I have no idea what the content of that will be. I haven't talked to Dutch about this yet. Right now, I'm just figuring we just plug them in and roll tape, and whatever happens, happens. Almost kind of like their whole premise of after 2 drinks, and they press record. So I'm looking forward to that. Kurt's looking forward to that. Dutch seems pretty cool. I'm not spoken to Gibbler yet, but from what I hear, she seems like a really nice lady. And I can't thank them enough. We're almost piggybacking on them. And the following they have on social media, on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and everything, they're going to add a lot of legitimacy to us. So I'm super excited about that. I know I keep harping on it, but for you guys don't understand what this means to me and Kurt, especially me, with me always running the business side of things, and Kurt just watching film and reading articles. And then I guess the next thing that I wanted to hop on here briefly and talk about was about the sports cards. So when I talked to Chris Dalton, Dutch Dalton, he had the idea. He's like, man, I'd like to just do an episode where we just talk about sports cards. He's like, well, all of us boys had, baseball, basketball, football, hockey. We all had trading cards growing up. And I was like, yeah. And I had remembered that I had stopped buying or trading or collecting anything when I hit about 13. So you're looking at the year 2000. So you're looking at like 22 years ago. And the more I started thinking about it, I was like, this was kind of cool. So I started digging around my house for my cards. Like, where could these things be? Surely to God, they're not in my dad's storage building. No, I found them. They were buried. And then I started looking through there, and it was just like, I was a 7 to 12-year-old boy again. I got super excited. My son had seen them, and he started asking about them. And it got me excited. So I was like, you know what? I just got on Amazon, got on eBay and looked. And the card market's hot right now. It's exploded in recent. COVID had a lot to do with it. Especially when everybody was in pretty much almost a nationwide lockdown in March. So it exploded. I spent like, I don't know, $25, $30, $40, whatever. And bought like almost 1,000 cards. There was some, most of it's what you would call junk. But there was some nice couple $10, $15 in there and whatnot. And then somebody very close to me, right now I'm not going to put it out there who, but somebody extremely close to me, so I've known his family for years. Apparently he's gotten into cards, almost like flipping them and selling them. And I didn't know that. He had posted on a page I'd followed. And this dude bought like pallets and pallets of cards. And I'm talking, he's got 50-cent cards. He's got $500 cards. He's got like the greatest mixed treasure mother lode. And so we spent all weekend talking. And I got some cards from him for a deal, basically to buy up inventory. And now all weekend long, we've been talking back and forth about possibly starting an online card shop, maybe eventually starting something else, like a brick and mortar. Who knows? It's all preliminary. But all I know is that I've got the bug to look at cards and buy and sell cards and trade cards like I had when I was a kid. And I've spent all weekend sorting through cards and looking at cards and trying to grade them on my own because I have no money to give out to PSA or Beckett or anybody right now. And, you can do a semi-decent job grading cards on your own if you know what to look for. I dug out the old magnifying glass. I got some latex gloves I've been wearing. Sorting the cards. I've been taking pictures, writing down everything, checking prices on these cards, what they've last went for, how long some of them are set with being moved, just checking out the whole 9 yards of it. And then I took a sheet of paper and started writing down names for a potential Facebook page. And it just, I'm really excited. And this all, Dutch, if you're listening, this is 50% your fault, but I guess thank you. I just simply dug cards out and found them just to kind of look and see and bring back memories to talk about this upcoming podcast collaboration with you guys. And then everything just fell in my lap, and it's been a fun weekend. I've got that going on. And of course, in the works is multiple podcasts. We're getting closer to the release of the date of of a wrestling podcast. Like I said, there's 2 or 3 different people that I'm consulting with on that. Eventually, I'm going to pull the trigger, and one of us is going to do something. I always hate the word It's such a transitional word when I'm speaking. It's also a time filler. As I look at 4:11 a.m. on a Monday morning, and I've been awake. I was awake all night Saturday night. Didn't go to bed till like 10 o'clock Sunday morning. Woke up at 2 o'clock Sunday afternoon. Been awake since 2. Lost my train of thought. And I'm super excited about the wrestling podcast, though. And like I said, when that gets going, I mean, that's going to be really something impressive, I think. Everybody knows about my love for the sport of professional wrestling. I mean, it's something I discovered when I was 3 or 4 years old. Like I said before, we all know the story. Sometime between 3 and 5 is when you get your first memories in life. It just varies whether you retain them or not. That varies when you get them, whatnot. But it's, typically between 3 to 5. And, I was 3 or 4. I remember vividly. And never thought... Like my dad always says, he goes, I never thought me introducing you to something would take over your damn life. Well, I mean, it has. I mean, I love sports. Pro wrestling's right there at the top. And that's why I'm super excited about this interview today with Jared Fritz. Hopefully, and he's a busy man. He travels all over the country refereeing. I think he works a shoot job too. He probably does work a shoot job. I don't know, but he set aside time, about an hour and a half for me. Going to call him, use the old BTA adapter. I'm going to test it out on Skype. With that adapter me and Kurt bought back in the summer, it's the $50 adapter. It does phone calls, Facebook Messenger. It's supposed to do Skype. So I'm going to try it with Mr. Fritz today with Skype. God willing, fingers crossed, you know what I'm saying? And it's just going to be an interview. Just get on there and talk wrestling, bonus episode, and... He's a great guy. He's been super great to me on Twitter as I've got involved in wrestling media. And I'm really looking forward to that. Aside from that, I don't really have a whole lot going on. It's going to be a busy week. My son turns 11 on Wednesday. I turn 35 on Friday. So we gonna plan a big dual birthday party for Sunday afternoon for me and him. I've got to go finish their back-to-school shopping this week. I was supposed to go to Iowa for my shoot job, get out of the office for a little while, and go on the road, but plans have changed. I'll be working from home all week, so that'll give me a chance to do some other things. I'm going to take my youngest one. She starts preschool. The kids go back to school in about 2 weeks or so, and my youngest one's going to start preschool, and I was always working. I missed preschool and kindergarten. I missed every first day of school for my 8-year-old and my soon-to-be 11-year-old because I was working, and I'll be damned if I miss the very first day of school ever for my youngest one. Like, I'm going to see one of them go on their first day of school, so I'm going to take them to school. But before that, I've spent so much time with him with this new job over the summer. It's been awesome. But one thing I've done is I've done each a one-on-one day with them this summer. Like, I took my boy to see, the NWA back in April, which was technically like 2 or 3 weeks before school was out. So I told him that counted as his big one-on-one day with me. We had a blast. I took my middle one to Sky Zone a few weeks back, which I think is where I got the COVID. But then my youngest one, I'm going to take her to the zoo Thursday, I think. And she will absolutely love that. She loves animals. She loves the zoo. She doesn't know she's going to the zoo, but she knows she's getting a day with just her and Daddy. No Bubby, no Sissy. She's super excited about that. And I guess, that's really all I really wanted to talk about. Other than, ramble on about wrestling. There's so much pro wrestling stuff that went down this weekend. WWE held SummerSlam. Just last night, Ric Flair wrestled his last match ever at in Nashville. That was a huge turnout. A lot of people in attendance. There was a internet wrestling community up and roar over a couple of guys in wrestling media that got into it at this big wrestling festival called Starrcast, which is put on by Ric Flair's son-in-law, the Podfather himself, the number one reason I got into podcasting, Conrad Thompson. I'm pretty sure Starrcast is his baby, and there was some shit that went down between two guys on Twitter. They've not liked each other for a while. One guy is a real turd in the punch bowl. He's a racist, homophobic, transphobic, just a nasty person. And he got called out in public by another guy that runs Fightful. I'm sure some of you guys have heard about Fightful and Fightful Select. They cover wrestling, boxing, MMA news. They are a very reputable, very good source. One of the head honchos for Fightful, he just called this guy out for being a turd in the punch bowl, and it just exploded internet wrestling community. I never even heard of the other guy. I've heard of Sean Ross Sapp. He's the guy that runs Fightful. Sean's a tremendous human being, a super nice guy. Lives down in Lexington, Kentucky. Sean just saw Bill there and was like, called him out, and just a fucking Twitter war ensued. It was almost comical to see the things that Bill was putting on social media. But I don't know if I'm going to do a complete breakdown of that right now. I don't really have a lot of interest in doing it. All I can say is, to me, Ric Flair officially retired in March 2008 at WrestleMania 24 in Orlando. He come out of retirement, went and worked at TNA for a while, lingered around. But to me, Rick officially retired. How long ago was 2008? Jesus Christ. It's cheese and rice. What, 14 years ago? Something like that? But good for Rick. He wanted to go out on his own terms, and that's kind of what he did. Of course, you knew with it being Flair's last match, he was going to blade, and he did a nice blade job. Got some nice color. Several people were in attendance. The show itself was tremendous. I didn't watch it. I was too busy with the sports cards. Go figure. I mean, you know it's got to be something major if I'm not tuning in to watch wrestling, right? But the main event was promoted well. It's one of the better storylines in professional wrestling history in a while, with Jeff Jarrett being involved and Ric Flair's son-in-law, Andrade, who married Rick's daughter Charlotte, and then Jay Lethal. I tell you what, if any of you guys that like wrestling, or even if you don't, you want 10 minutes of entertainment, just go on YouTube and search two different things. All right, hop in your Google machine right now. All right, are you there? Go to YouTube. Okay. Type in Jay Lethal, Macho Man, Randy Savage. Jay does great Macho Man impersonations. And after you watch that, then type in Jay Lethal, Ric Flair, TNA. And it's going to pop up a lot of things, but the number one thing it should pop up, and if it doesn't, it's a fucking travesty, is an episode of Impact Wrestling from 2010 or 11, where Jay Lethal is standing on top of the stage and Rick's in the ring with AJ Styles and might have been Frankie Kazarian, maybe. I'm not sure if Kazarian was there. I can't remember. And it's basically Jay impersonating Ric Flair. And they sit there and they have a woo-off, because everybody knows Ric Flair goes, woo! And Jay was doing it back. He was talking like Rick. He had Rick's mannerisms down. It is one of the funniest fucking things you will ever see in your life, whether you're a fan of professional wrestling or not. It's guaranteed 10 minutes of entertainment. Ric Flair looks like he's about to blow a gasket in the ring. Veins popping out and everything. Like, some bitch looks like he's going to have an aneurysm and kill over with a heart attack all at the same time. Jay pisses him off. It is just tremendous. And it was a nice storyline, you know. Hats off to Jay and Andrade, Rick and Jeff and Conrad and everybody that put that together. It was very well done. Better than half the shit you see on professional wrestling television right now. Brock Lesnar destroyed a wrestling ring with a tractor Saturday night at SummerSlam. Oh, yeah, clips are all over social media. You can go find it. Takes the front end of a Case IH tractor with a loader bucket and just lifts up the ring and destroys it. It's hilarious. It was a holy shit moment. I wouldn't be surprised if that finds its way into a video game or something down the line, but... Did you hear me hit the vape? Grape flavor. Anyways. So yeah, I mainly just want to get on here and thank you guys for the record numbers. And I super appreciate that. And to tell you guys, I'm still working on the Buy Me a Coffee thing, but I did get our Patreon set up. And I learned a little bit more about it. You know, I was talking about bonus content. I didn't know how to release it. Well, apparently, as an idiot, as I've discovered and got into this Patreon thing, now when I release episodes, it gives me the option to whether it's a normal episode release or if it's a Patreon release, which obviously you have to spend money to get the Patreon content. And again, none of you have to contribute a fucking thing. This is just a way, if you believe in us and you like what we do, you can chip us a little bit of money. We've got 2 goals set up right now. We've got a goal set up of $300, ballpark. And every dollar will be used strictly for the for the podcast. There's no me pocketing any money, Kurt pocketing any money. It's strictly money to be dumped back into the podcast. It's the $300 goal is to help us get the 2 extra mics and headphones, because I want quality ones, and basically I want to try to get the ones I still have. I want matching sets, and a set of those be about $150 a piece. And then there's another smaller goal set up of like $125. That's just roundabouts to cover the upcoming collaboration, which again, you do not have to donate any of these. These will set up there after the trip to Richmond. I'm going to take the 1 goal down, but there's certain tiers if you meet, and there'll be rewards for each tier, like shout outs on the show. You can call in for 30 minutes on an episode. You can help us pick our topic. And then, of course, like the ultimate tier 4 is we remote you with the BTA, or we all get together if we've got the extra mic, and we all record together. And you can sit in on an entire episode with us if you so choose. Which I don't know if anybody would want to do that or not, but the option's out there. But basically, so many content creators now with Facebook and music and everything, they're starting Patreon. And we got to a point where our downloads were growing, and Podbean reached out to me about why haven't you set up a Patreon? And I remember looking at thinking, like, who the fuck would want to give me and Kurt money to listen to anything we have to say? But I don't know, winging a prayer. Slowly over 15 months, this brand has started to grow. And I don't know the reason for 207 downloads for the month of July. I know there was a huge purge, multiple days of at least 15 to 25 to 30 something downloads. A huge purge over about a week and a half time frame, this last week and a half of the month of July. That's got to be somebody coming through telling people about the podcast, because sometimes the analytics don't work. Sometimes I can't see where the listens are coming from. I can't see if it's one user or if it's multiple users. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Maybe I just haven't figured out that part of the analytics yet. But to me, I'm thinking it's probably a huge catalog purge and download. But whether that's the case or whether it was seriously word of mouth and like 15 different people decided to check out the podcast today, whatever the case may be, again, I can't thank you guys enough for listening to hashtag tits, 2 idiots talking sports. Seriously missed the boat on that. That would be a tremendous amount of monthly downloads if we would have been called the Tits Podcast. Very misleading, hilarious. 2 idiots talking sports, tits. But I digress. all I can say is if you guys like what you do, or like what we do, if you haven't already, please share the podcast. Share the Twitter account. Share the Facebook page. Share the podcast on Spotify. Share episodes. Share everything. Share word of mouth. You don't even have to donate to the Patreon. Just tell somebody about us. And give us feedback. Even if you tell us, God, you guys suck, I hope you guys never record another podcast again. That's fine, I'll take that. But give us something. And for those that have, we appreciate it. And I haven't told Kurt this yet. This idea just came to me overnight. Some of the more recent feedback has been in regards to our 3 steel toe episodes. You know, like I said, we're Steel Toes and Scoreboards. I joke that we're a twofold podcast. Scoreboards is sports episodes. Steel Toes is everything else we talk about on the shop floor, even though I'm not on the shop floor with Kurt anymore. And we've done 3 of those episodes. We done the first one September 12th, or September 11th, whatever, the day after my grandfather died. We did the second one. I did solo back in March with part 1 of our 3-part series on government overreach. That was Ruby Ridge. And we did our 3rd Steel Toes episode just a few weeks ago when we did Waco. And in the last month and a half, the Waco episode has been the most downloaded. And one of the things I'm getting from people is that they're really digging, or they really dug these 3 episodes that were Steel Toes side. So there is part 3 on the government overreach coming sometime this year. That will be Oklahoma City bombing. Because that's kind of overreach, but it's kind of not. And the only reason it's in there is because they're all 3 contributed. Timothy McVeigh, ex-military, he's seen what happened at Ruby Ridge. McVeigh was at Waco alongside the road. McVeigh was interviewed on television about Waco before people ever knew before they ever knew who he was. They're all 3 connected. So we will be talking about that. I had a suggestion that we do an episode on, I call it Killdozer. Marvin Heemeyer. That's one of my favorite stories to tell. That'll be a lot like Ruby Ridge and way different than Waco, whereas I still needed some notes for Waco. I didn't need any notes for Ruby Ridge. I'll need very few notes for Killdozer if we do that. That's one of my favorite stories. I'm really getting into these stories. So what we need to do is episodes about stories. Marvin Heemeyer, the whole thing in Colorado, he got pissed off with the local city government, just kind of retired to a life of a hermit crab, and for a year modified a bulldozer into basically a tank and destroyed shit all around town. And then when the dozer got hung up, decided he wasn't going to jail, which I don't know how long he would have went to jail for. I don't imagine it been like a few years. He probably got out for good behavior. Wouldn't have been like no life sentence, but he just decided, fuck this, and blew his brains out inside the bulldozer, for lack of a better term, after it got hung up. But it's a Killdozer. 2004, Granby, Colorado. I was a sophomore in high school, I believe, maybe a freshman. I don't remember. I remember the story vividly, like clockwork. So, that might be a future episode. But anyways, guys, I've rambled on here for 35 minutes. I haven't said a whole lot of nothing. Just wanted to get a few things off my chest, clear my head out like I do. I don't know how much content's going to come out the month of August, aside from many episodes. Kurt and I probably won't do a full-length episode until probably the last weekend in August, or second to last weekend in August. We usually still record every 2 weeks on kid-free weekends, but I've got some prior commitments coming up in this coming weekend's my birthday weekend and my son's, so I'll have the kids. The following weekend I've already made plans, so we won't be getting together there. So we'll still have to pick a topic for an episode, unless Kurt wants to go ahead and pull the 1990 World Series back out, but that's in rotation. It's always nice to have a couple backup episodes when we don't want to do bonus content. We need something to do. We now have 2 in our pull a rabbit out of our ass file. Like I said, the 06 Super Bowl winning Colts and now the 1990 World Series. But as far as our next full-length episode, I don't know what that will be. I know about ballpark when it will be. Stay tuned for that. Tomorrow night we're going to record a mini unless something comes up. And I might be popping up bonus content all month just because I'm in the mood. I can tell you how many nights in the last few weeks I have almost pulled the equipment out and just recorded a mini episode talking about whatever. But, sometimes I don't. But all right, guys, for Kirk Kelly, who is probably waking up right now because he's got to be at work in an hour and a half. And he's like my dad. His old ass thinks he has to get up hours ahead of time. So for Kirk Kelly, I'm Jared Atkins. Once again, guys, check out our Patreon, patreon.podbean.com/STSB. And like and share the podcast. We are finally again available on Apple, and I think that played a huge part in beating our previous records by 100 downloads because that was the one channel we needed to be on, and I could never figure out what I was doing wrong. And then magically now we're on there. So maybe it was on my end, who knows? But we are listed on Apple Podcasts now. We're on all the major. We are on all the major channels. Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Player FM, Amazon. The only other semi-major one that we should be on and we're not, and it's a pain in the ass. And I'll eventually do it. Is Pandora, where you can't find us on Pandora, but you can find us everywhere else. You can find us on the major 4. Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple. Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. So we're on the major 4. We just don't have number 5 yet, which is Pandora. I'll get to it. But anyways, I've rambled enough, guys. Hope you guys have a good day. And you guys will be hearing from us soon. Thanks, guys.